Now, please, let me advise you. As a young man, as a young woman, grow large in your spirit. Grow very large. Give yourself to fasting. Give yourself to prayer now. Man was created to function in the image of God. Image of God. First of all, I will use an elementary definition for image before we move into the definition of the image of God in the New Testament. How many of you have ever seen a glove before? Hand glove. A hand glove is in the image of a hand. And the reason for which it was manufactured was that it was intended to play host to a hand. So you are created in the image of God because you were created with the capacity to contact God, to contain God, and to express God. So the image of God has these three connotations. Even if an unbeliever comes here and will begin to worship, he has the capacity to contact God. He will experience the same presence you experience because he can contact God. It is because he can contact God that he can be saved in the first place. The reason why he can contact God is because he's created in the image of God. But the purpose for which you contact God is so that you can contain him. And the purpose for which you contain God is so that you can express him. So you have the capacity to contact him. You have the capacity to contain him. You have the capacity to express him. Is that clear? Please help me preach to your neighbor. You have the capacity to contact God, to contain God, and to express God. Please take note of this definition. It is a very elementary definition. But by the time we go to the book of John, chapter 5, you are going to see Jesus. Jesus makes statements like, I can do nothing of myself. He said, my doctrine is not mine. It is whatsoever I see the Father do that I do. You are not following me. What's the meaning of that? What's the meaning of that? If Jesus says that I cannot do anything of myself, it is only what I see the Father do that I'm allowed to do, that I do. It means the first thing is that Jesus surrendered his will to the will of his Father. So even though Jesus has a will, Jesus has an opinion, Jesus was not called to be creative. He was called to manifest his Father. No, you are not following me. In the book of John chapter 20, Jesus makes a statement. And the statement he makes reveals how he was sent from heaven. Because Jesus said, as the Father has sent me, so send I you. So what he wanted to do was what the Father did to him before he was sent from heaven. And what exactly did he do? Hey, give me John. These people are not following me. John chapter 20 verse 21. I'd like you to look at the scriptures. Then said Jesus to them again, peace be unto you, for as my Father sent me, even so send I you. So the way he wants to send them now is the way he was sent by his Father. Are you following? Okay, let's go to the next verse. Then you see how his father sent him, because that's the same way he's going to be sending his disciples. Then when he had said this, what did he do? He breathed on them. And what did he say? Receive, contain God. That's what he's saying. You know, I told you that we were created in the image of God so that we can contact God, we can contain God, and then we can what? Express God. You are following me now? Now I want us to get the fundamentals in place before we begin. There are deep aspects of kingdom reality Because the influence of God over your life is going to influence how you do everything. How you do business, how you do politics, how you relate with your wife, how you relate with money. The government of God over your life is going to influence the outlook of your life in every facet whatsoever. But we are picking it gradually. It is not even a 5-day conference. Kingdom Matters, we should be talking about 7 days or 14 days for us to really enter into Kingdom Matters. But since we're doing it annually, we'll do it to a point next year. We'll continue until every one of us is educated on how to operate under the government of God effectively. And our nations, our churches, our places of work will begin to reflect Christ. I will tell you how it happens, how urban renewals and national renewals take place. But I need to tell you from the cellular level first, then the alignment level of individuals, then community alignment, national alignment. And even if Satan is in the territory, Satan will have no place to operate. We can vote him out by yielding to the government that is expressly coming from heaven. If you are still with me, say amen. All right, so Jesus now shows up. And Jesus says, as the Father has sent me, that's the same way I'm sending you. Then he breathed on them and said, receive ye the Spirit. It means that his Father breathed on him before he left heaven. The Father breathed on him and said, receive the Spirit. You didn't get it? Now, it means that the Father was entering into Jesus as the Spirit. So Jesus was going to leave the Father. And you now, Christ has breathed upon you and said, receive the Spirit. So you are going to leave Christ. Oh, you are not following. It's still confusing to you. So you'll find Jesus saying that he cannot do anything of himself because his duty after containing his Father is to express his Father. Oh my God. His duty after containing his Father, because his Father breathed himself into Jesus as the Spirit. So it was the Spirit of his Father that he was carrying. Meanwhile, we are carrying the Spirit of Christ. Are you following me? So Jesus will say, I cannot do anything of myself. The reason why he's saying that is because he understands his job. His job is to express his Father. So even though he has his own opinions, he has his own will, the first thing he needs to do in order for him to express his Father is that he surrenders his own will and takes up the will of the Father. So even though in the Garden of Gethsemane, he had a suggestion that if it is, my God, if it is possible, let this cup pass away from me. I know you have so much wisdom. You can manipulate this thing and exclude this cup from what is required to achieve redemption. You can do that. If it is possible, let this cup pass away from me. So you could see that Jesus had a preference, he had a will. But even though he expressed his will, he then went back to surrender his will again to, however, not my will. Even though I have an opinion, I have a request, but I still submit that request to your will. That was when Jesus was praying and he thought that the cup was different from the will of God initially. Then when he continued the prayer the second time, continued the prayer the third time, he now discovered that the will of God and the cup was one. Have you started praying before and your perception, you had a perception, but as you entered into the place of prayer, God began to adjust your perception like a lens of a camera, and you started becoming more accurate. Then you now understood what the will of the Lord was. So Jesus, that was how he came into the presence of God. He thought that the cup was different from the will, and as he pressed on, he now discovered that the cup was one with the will of God, and he therefore surrendered to the cup because his preoccupation was to express his Father. You get that? So if we are going to, that's why Jesus is called the image of God, because in all of his life Jesus did not say any word that was his. Jesus did not do anything that was his preference. Everything he did was what his Father, he saw his Father do, was the promptings of his Father's Spirit that he felt on his heart. Those were the things he did, those were the things he said. Did you get that? That is why he's called the image of God. A time came that the disciples came to Jesus and said, hey, you've been talking about the Father every time. We don't have any rest. Every day you say the Father, the Father. Show us the Father and we will be satisfied. And Jesus was depressed. He says, so I've been with you all this while and you are still saying, show us the Father. Everything that I've done since you knew me was to express the Father. I am the theater upon which the Father does his displays. Anytime he wants to do something, he gives me an impression by his Spirit that is within me. And as I yield to his Spirit, I understand what he wants to do, and that's what I do. It is the Father I've been advertising. Do you get that? The image of God. That means in Jesus, the Father was not obscured. In Jesus, the Father was not barricaded. In Jesus, the Father had full liberty for expression. Now, the question I have for you, does God have liberty to express himself in your vessel? Is it God that is at work in you or you? When you gave your wife a slap, who was at work? It was God? Oh yeah, you're not following me. It's a difficult thing to be a man. You must understand. It's not just something you need to know intellectually. You are supposed to be the image of God. That means if God wants to manifest, all he gives you is a prompting. And then the next thing is that you surrender your will in order for him to have that expression. All he needs. And so he's in you. That's why he's in you by his Spirit. Because he will be communicating with your spirit man through spirit language and giving you promptings. And then you will be doing the yielding. And as you are doing the yielding, he will be expressing himself through your vessel. You don't have it, even though you have a will, you don't have a right to express yourself. Because you were not created in your image. You are created in the image of God. So the moment I begin to yield to God and I begin to function as the image of God, I begin to reflect God, begin to advertise God. It is God that is speaking through my vocal cord. It is God that lays his hands upon people when I put my hands upon them. It is God. You begin to see things that man cannot do will begin to manifest through my life. Oh, you don't get that. You are not following. You're not following me. Now listen. I'm still trying to establish what it means when God says he wants a man created in his image. Because if we go on the streets in Kenya and we cannot see God on display in the marketplaces, we cannot see God in the offices, we cannot see God manifesting in the business, in the banking sector, if we can't see God in corporate organizations, in entities, in systems upon the face of the earth, it means that a generation has decided no longer to be his image. They have found another way to operate. They are manifesting a different civilization apart from God. Do you know what? Because you are a man, you must express somebody. It's either you are expressing God or whether you like it or not, you will express somebody. You were created as a prism to reflect someone. Are you there? Even when you say it is yourself, you are reflecting that, okay, I'm not reflecting God. I want to. That yourself you are operating is already under the authority of Satan. That self, that's the fallen nature that you are manifesting. And it's already rigged with Satan. So that self-centeredness, self-seeking dimension, appetites, and all of those things that you want to manifest now are falling. Are you there? So you must reflect something. When you begin to reflect that self, it is actually the image of Satan that you have decided that your vessel will reveal. But you must reveal somebody. But the man that God conceived will not reveal Satan. The man that God conceived, and the example of such a man is Jesus. He revealed his Father. He revealed who? His Father. So the first question I need to ask you before we pick up this lecture is, who do you reveal?
Now, please, let me advise you. As a young man, as a young woman, grow large in your spirit. Grow very large. Give yourself to fasting. Give yourself to prayer now.